Hi, thank you for checking out this tour of standards-based grammar. I'm going to use the grade 5 edition to show you all the features of this program. So if you'd like to take this tour using another grade level edition and see some worksheets from that edition, just exit this tour and click on one of the other grade levels, and you can take the same tour using the worksheets from that other edition of standards-based grammar. In this quick tour, I'm going to show you the features that make this grammar program so powerful. However, there is another tour that gives tips and advice for how to get the most out of this book. The first part of that tips and advice tour will go more in depth on how I teach different worksheets from the different grade levels of standards-based grammar. However, the second part of that tour will show you how to organize your entire writing program to help you incorporate the grammar skills your students are learning from this book into your entire writing program. So if you're interested in this grammar program, I highly recommend checking out that tips and advice video when you have more time. Okay, about this tour. My goal here is to show you that standards-based grammar is powerful enough for you to use as your daily grammar program, but also affordable enough to get if you only need a couple of units. With that in mind, here's a list of the features in standards-based grammar along with the timestamps in case you want to jump ahead to another section. What I'm going to show you is, first, I'm going to cover the worksheets and how they're designed to help you get the most out of your grammar instruction time. You'll also get to see several sample worksheets as well. Next, you'll get to see the extensions, which is a really powerful tool to get your students using the grammar skills in the context of actual writing situations. You'll see how the tests and checklists work together to really supercharge your program. And finally, I'll quickly review the student consumables option, which can save you tons of time in your prep work. So let's begin with the worksheets. Here's a quick look at the table of contents so you can see the standards that are covered. Feel free to click pause if you'd like to take a longer look at the table of contents here, but I'm going to move right into the first worksheet. And that's going to be true for many of the worksheets in this video. I might be jumping very quickly, so just pause if you feel like you want to see it a little longer. So obviously, the worksheets are the heart of the book. So let's take a look at how the worksheets are organized. Now, this is standards-based grammar, so each grammar skill is a standard. And you can see here on this worksheet that the standard is complex sentences. The way this book is organized, the first worksheet of every standard will have a lesson at the top. For the busy teacher who has so many lessons to teach in a day, it's great because it just takes a minute or two to review the lesson and you're ready to go. The lesson will either be in a box or it'll be up there at the top of the worksheet. I recommend that when you teach the lesson, you annotate the worksheet with your students by highlighting and circling keywords. This will keep them engaged. It'll keep them with you. It'll keep them focused on what you're trying to explain. Then you'll have the annotations and the lesson from this first worksheet to use as a review for future worksheets. And the students can just go back to this first worksheet when they're doing the other worksheets, and they have a reminder there. And combined with the grammar journal is a great way for the students to just refresh their memories when they do the other worksheets. I also recommend that you have the students keep a grammar journal. There will be times when you want to extend the lessons, and the grammar journal is a great place to do this. Also, you're going to see in the next section, the extensions, the students will need a place to practice their extensions and practice their grammar skills in real writing situations. And the grammar journal is a great place to do this as well. In the tips and advice video, I go into much greater detail on how to use this grammar journal. So again, I highly recommend that tips and advice video. Next, after you go over the lesson from the first worksheet, you'll find an activity that starts getting the students comfortable with this new skill. So when you begin a standard, you'll have a lesson and you'll have an activity that gets the students comfortable with this new standard that you're really about to get into. Okay, so now you can see that this is worksheet number 2 of that series. Going back to worksheet number 1 of complex sentences, this worksheet introduces parts of a complex sentence, such as the dependent clause and the independent clause and the new subordinate conjunction. The cool part of standards-based grammar is that by the time you're finished with this unit, the students will know this vocabulary very well, and they'll even be able to explain it. So the students earlier in standards-based grammar learned the parts of a simple sentence. So now they're going to build on simple sentences and learn about complex sentences. So here on worksheet number 2, the students are going to practice finding subordinate conjunctions, independent clauses, and dependent clauses. And then here on the third worksheet, the students are going to learn to put all the pieces together and even learn when to use a comma in complex sentences and when not to use a comma in complex sentences. True story, every year when state testing happens, there's an apparent comma error on one of the questions, and it's involving a complex sentence. It's not in the answer, but it's in the actual question. And I say apparent because there are some rare exceptions to the comma rule in complex sentences that are too deep for the fifth graders to get. But at least one student will call me over to point out the comma error in the complex sentence on the state test. So that's some deep learning there. So they are really internalizing the skill. So again, in standards-based grammar, the worksheets build on a standard until the students are ready to start using the standard in actual writing situations. Here in this unit on improving the quality of their sentences, the students are learning to edit their writing to combine simple sentences into their writing in order to create complex sentences. And you can see the tricks that they're learning to make not only complex sentences, but to improve the quality of their sentences as well. It can be as basic as moving one word from one sentence to the other sentence. Like in sample 1, we had pepperoni pizza for dinner. Or it could be a more complex sentence combining, such as number 3, where they take a main idea from a sentence and move it to another. Like in number 3, they might put, after the ball rolled into the bushes, we had to look for it. Again, the goal of standards-based grammar is to get the students to use the skills they learn in the context of actual speaking and writing situations. You'll see more about how this happens when I go over the extensions. Moving on. I'm going to show you a few more worksheets from standards-based grammar. Just know you can download more sample worksheets on the standards-based grammar grade 5 webpage. There's a link in the description you can see there. So if you want to see a little bit more, just click on that link and you can download some samples. So here's some worksheets on the parts of speech. 5th grade is really the student's last formal opportunity to lock in the basics of the parts of speech, because from 6th grade on, they'll be expected to take a much deeper dive into how they can use the parts of speech to become better writers. Here in units 3 and 4 of the grade 5 edition, the students use visual mnemonic devices to memorize the definitions. In the grades 3 and 4 editions, the students spend a lot more time making these pictures. So if the students have gone through those books, this will be a great review. But the tricks are a great way to lock in the definitions, and the 5th graders have an opportunity to learn those same visual memory tricks and lock in those definitions. They're older, so they'll get it much more quickly. So looking at a few tricks that they learn, here's the verbs trick. It's excellent for helping the students remember that verbs are more than just action words, that they also state a fact. You can see that here on the next worksheet as they practice the to be verbs. Then here's a fun trick for adverbs where kids are shouting questions at a carnival worker about the exciting event that's about to happen. Then a similar trick here for adjectives, sticking with the carnival theme. They're going to shout questions at the carnival worker. Then finally, in 5th grade, the students really need to lock in prepositions, lock in conjunctions, as you saw when we went over complex and compound sentences. and they need to lock in interjections. So even in 5th grade, the students are expected to take deeper dives into the parts of speech. And here's an example of that. As the students really find the pictures they drew helpful in determining if a word is an adverb or a preposition, they can see, is it used in a phrase like until dinner? Oh, it's a preposition. Does it answer one of those questions? And they'll think back to the picture like number 6. Where should you look? Oh, inside. Oh, it's an adverb. Answers the question where. And finally, you can see here on the checklist for Unit 4, the students are going to take a deeper dive into the parts of speech, even as they get through the rest of the standards-based grammar here. So moving on to some worksheets for capitalization, standards-based grammar has a list of 9 capitalization rules that help the students know when to capitalize a word. But it also has a list of words that shouldn't be capitalized. And these are words that are often capitalized when they shouldn't be. They kind of sound like they should be capitalized, but they really shouldn't. Then after this list of capitalization rules, there are plenty of practice worksheets to help them memorize the capitalization rules and use the pictures to help know when to use the capitalization rule or not. Next are some worksheets on the comma rules. This is one of my favorite units because you get to see your students' sentences improve right away. When teaching writing, it often takes months to see any real progress in students' writing. But at the 5th grade level, you can see their sentences transform right away because this program not only teaches them where to put the commas, but it gives them activities that require them to put these kinds of sentences in their writing. That's why each comma rule has a name like direct address, introductory word or phrase, interrupter, appositives, and more. When you give a writing assignment, all you need to do is require that they use 2 or 3 of these comma rules. And because you gave them a name, all you have to do is say, all right, use direct address and introductory phrase. And they'll just know to put those kinds of sentences in their writing. And it really starts generating a variety of sentence structure right there in their paragraphs. And you can start doing that right away as you're doing these worksheets. It's really beneficial and it really improves their writing very quickly, especially if you combine standards-based grammar, these comma rules, with our other books like Writing Tricks Plus and the Complete Writing Program. These books help the students apply not just the comma rules, but dozens of grammar, punctuation, literary devices, and more into their writing. And again, if you go and take a look at the tips and advice video, you'll see how those 3 books work together with the other books, and it really creates a powerful writing program. So finally, here's some worksheets from Units 7 and 8. Here's a worksheet that introduces apostrophes with possessive nouns. There are a lot of tricky rules for using apostrophes, especially rule number 3 there. That one still freaks me out. When to put an apostrophe if a word already ends in S. It just seems really weird. You can see there's 2 different circumstances on that rule, and it just looks really weird to me when I'm writing it. It might look weird to the kids too, so it's a good time to point that out that, hey, even the teacher gets freaked out by some of these rules. And here's an introduction to colons and semicolons. Once you learn to use semicolons, it's kind of fun to use them, for me at least, because people don't use the semicolon very often. It's kind of one of those weird ones that you only see in books. But it's kind of fun to start using them and encouraging the students to use it because they'll be one of the few people in their class or one of the few people they know who actually use semicolons in their writing. Then there's prefixes. There's a really fun unit in the grade 5 edition on prefixes and suffixes that really help students build their vocabulary. You can see that prefixes change the meaning of a word. Later, they learn that suffixes change the part of speech of a word. And they do all kinds of fun activities to help lock that in their brains. And finally, here's a worksheet on homonyms. The students are going to draw pictures and do activities to learn the differences between the words. I like to draw the pictures with them, have a little fun. It's fun to get a little goofy with the kids and draw the pictures. And you can really make great spelling units out of these words. It's a fun little unit. Moving on, the next feature that I'm going to show you is the extensions. And you'll see that some of the worksheets have extensions on them. The extensions really take standards-based grammar to a whole new level. Again, the goal of standards-based grammar is to help the students apply grammar skills within the context of actual speaking and writing situations. The extensions here are where the magic really happens. After you teach the first worksheet of a standard, many of the follow-up worksheets will have extensions on them. The extension is a small writing assignment where the students are practicing their grammar skills within real writing situations. You can see here on complex sentences number 2, when the students finish the activity at the top, there's an extension down at the bottom. You can see in this 10-minute activity that the students are asked to use subordinate conjunctions to write complex sentences. Not only are they practicing writing complex sentences in real writing situations, but they also have to identify the parts of the complex sentence. A great follow-up activity for this is to have the students trade their journals with each other and label each other's complex sentences. This would produce dozens of mini lessons around your classroom as the students can help each other learn the skill better and see examples from each other on how to write complex sentences. It really exponentially improves your lessons when the students start helping each other learn this skill even better. Now, when it comes to doing all these extensions, I do the extensions with the students, because doing them with the students gives me so many opportunities to model good writing and point out other writing skills as well. Again, I go into more detail about this in that tips and advice video. So again, I'm going to keep pushing that because there's a lot of really good tricks in there. Very quickly, here's a couple more extensions. There's one on the comma rules, interrupters, and appositives, where the students need to describe a game using interrupters and appositives. Here's an extension about interjection. Teaching students to put interjections into their writing is a nice little skill to add to their little writing bag of tricks. Finally, here's an extension on suffixes. This extension actually has them making flashcards out of the suffixes that they've learned, because they're going to play a game with the prefixes and suffixes later, and using their extension time here to make flashcards will help them get ready for that. So these extensions are a really powerful part of standards-based grammar. And moving on to the next powerful part of standards-based grammar are the tests and the checklists. The tests and checklists work together to really supercharge your grammar program. The tests by themselves are just tests. You teach, students learn. How do they do? That's a test. The checklists help turn the test into assessments where you get to see exactly where the students are still struggling and get them the help they need now, instead of just saying, oh, well, we got to move on. Hopefully the next year's teacher can help you get it, but I have to move on. With the checklists, you'll have exact knowledge of the students' weak areas, and these checklists will help you get the students the help they need now, instead of just hoping that they get help later. Again, tips and advice video shows you a lot more about how to do that. So the first checklist I'm going to show you is the parent checklist. I know it says student checklist on the top of the paper, but it's really for the parents, so I'm going to call it the parent checklist. The parent checklist goes to work before you even start each unit, because you can use the checklist as an overview and give it to the students to review the terms that they're about to start learning. This gives you an opportunity to front load some of the vocabulary, maybe talk about situations where they might use this in real life situations, maybe do some anticipatory sets, and it just gets them ready for what they're about to hear. So not only does this help the students get familiar with the new terms, it also serves as a reminder that when the test is finished, that they are going to take this checklist home and get a parent's signature. So it does raise the student's level of concern right away, because after a unit or two, the students are going to see this paper and go, oh, this is the one that's going to get my parent's signature. So I better really pay attention to these lessons. Now, the main use of this parent checklist is that it works with the test. So let's take a quick look at a test. You can see that the test is organized into the three standards that were on the parent checklist. There's complex sentences, sentence combining, and three types of sentences. Now, if the student does well on a standard on the test, I put a star. This means that they've mastered the standard. If they don't do so well, I just leave it blank, like on part 2 here, sentence combining. So on this example, the students passed parts 1 and 3, so they get stars on the tests, and we'll mark mastery on the parent checklist. Then on 2, since they didn't master it, we'll leave it blank on the test, and we'll mark non-mastery on the parent checklist. This checklist is part 1 of getting the students the help they need right away for their trouble areas. You could send the parent checklist home for a parent's signature, but you can also send it home with more worksheets, or better yet, a list of websites that offer games or tutorials for grammar skills. Many parents would love to have their children practice the skills they didn't quite get in the class and help them continue practicing these skills at home. It's a great way to partner up with the parents. Some parents may even get a tutor, which would be amazing. And now you're truly a partner with the parents to help get more help for their students and not just abandon them after they take the test. However, before you send the test and checklist home, let's look at another way you can use this parent checklist to help get more help for the students. Now, this here is the student checklist. I keep a copy of this checklist for each student in a file near my desk. And after each test, I'll record the students' results on this checklist. So on this checklist, you can record the students' results here. Then after the test, you can continue to record the results of each test here on the student checklist. It's a great way to keep track of the standards you've taught, as well as a way to keep track of every student's progress all the way to the end of the school year. This is another way to get more help for your students, because both the parent and student checklists can be given not only to the parents, but also to support staff at the school. You may have a classroom aide who works with the students, a parent who comes in to help, or an RSP teacher. Sometimes high schoolers will come over to our campus to tutor the students. This gives them something specific to use to help the students with their trouble areas. Many schools have resource teachers. We call them RSP teachers, who would love to have this information to help them set goals for the students and give them something to work on during their RSP time. There's so much you can do with the tests and checklists here besides just seeing how did they do on an exam and then just walking away. To wrap up this tour, standards-based grammar's goal is to help the students get complete mastery over all the grammar standards, and to help them master it so well that they're actually using these standards to make their speaking and writing better. Hopefully you've seen just how powerful this program can be, but there's even one more way to make this program even stronger, and that's by using student consumables. There are several ways to get information on the student consumables. You can click on the consumables link at the top of the web page and get information that way. You can also click on any edition for standards-based grammar on the home page, which will also take you to a link to download more sample worksheets. Then at the bottom of the page will be ordering information, information on purchase orders, and information on the student consumables. Finally, remember, there is a video where I show more tips and advice for using standards-based grammar. In that video, along with the tips and advice for the lessons in standards-based grammar, are 3 strategies for teaching your entire writing program that can really change your life. I highly recommend it. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and go create better writers.
CreateBetterWriters.com